We have been lied to for centuries about what ancient Egyptian carvings truly reveal. Hidden in plain sight, etched in stone and sealed in tombs, lies evidence of advanced flying craft visiting Earth thousands of years before modern civilization. These aren't misinterpreted religious symbols or artistic flourishes. They're detailed records of encounters that would shatter our understanding of human history. What you're about to discover has been deliberately kept from you, buried by those who control the narrative of our past. For generations, we've been fed a carefully constructed version of ancient Egyptian civilization. Primitive tools, simple technology, and a society struggling to build monuments through sheer manpower alone. The history books paint a clear picture. No advanced knowledge, no sophisticated technology, just human ingenuity at its most basic. The narrative is so deeply ingrained in our collective consciousness that questioning it seems almost sacrilegious. But the cracks in this fabricated story have been there all along, hiding in shadows cast by the very monuments we're told were built by copper chisels and brute force. The truth, as it often does, lies etched in stone, literally, waiting for those brave enough to see it. Deep within the temples of Abydos and hidden chambers of Karnak lie carvings that tell a very different story. Hieroglyphs depicting objects that defy conventional explanation. Disc-shaped craft hovering above stunned onlookers. Elongated vessels suspended in midair. Beings emerging from cylindrical machines. These aren't isolated anomalies. They appear throughout Egypt's most sacred sites, consistent in their impossible depictions. These aren't vague or abstract symbols that can be dismissed as artistic license or religious metaphor. They show detailed mechanical components, occupants inside transparent cockpits, and beams of light emanating from these craft. The precision is staggering, with consistent features appearing across sites separated by hundreds of miles and centuries of time. The ancient artisans carved with such meticulous detail that propulsion systems, landing gear, and even what appear to be navigation lights are clearly distinguishable. Most disturbing is how these carvings were discovered, not by amateur enthusiasts, but by respected archaeologists who found themselves facing an impossible choice: report what they found and face ridicule, or remain silent and betray their scientific integrity. Those who chose truth over career advancement paid a heavy price. Egyptologists who've dared to question the official narrative have found themselves marginalized, their careers destroyed, their findings buried in museum basements. Photographic evidence mysteriously disappears from archives. Sections of temples suddenly become off-limits to researchers after unusual carvings are reported. Why such desperate measures to hide carvings in stone? Because these images don't just suggest contact with something beyond our world. They prove it beyond any reasonable doubt. The implications are earth-shattering. If ancient Egyptians witnessed and recorded advanced flying craft, everything we've been taught about human technological evolution collapses. The neat, linear progression from primitive to advanced that underpins our entire understanding of civilization is exposed as a fabrication. And that's exactly why powerful institutions have worked tirelessly to ensure these carvings remain obscured, misinterpreted, or outright denied. But these carvings were just the beginning of a discovery that would shatter everything we thought we knew about our past. The evidence doesn't end with mere wall carvings. Throughout Egypt's vast archaeological record lies a disturbing pattern of artifacts that have been systematically removed from public view, cataloged incorrectly, or simply lost in the labyrinthine storage facilities of the world's most prestigious museums. This isn't random negligence. It's a calculated effort to suppress physical evidence that contradicts the established historical narrative. Consider the infamous helicopter hieroglyphs of the Temple of Seti the Furners at Abydos. First photographed in the 1960s, these remarkable carvings clearly depict what appear to be modern aircraft: a helicopter with distinctive rotor and cockpit, an airplane-like craft with tapered wings, and several disc-shaped objects that bear striking resemblance to contemporary descriptions of UFOs. The official explanation? A coincidence of overlapping symbols created during a recarving process. Yet engineering experts who have analyzed the depth, consistency, and precision of these carvings have concluded they were created in a single effort, not as palimpsests or mistakes. The probability of random overlapping symbols creating perfect representations of modern aircraft is mathematically impossible, like finding a detailed blueprint for an iPhone in Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks. What's more troubling is how access to these hieroglyphs has been restricted over the decades. Initially open to public viewing, the chamber containing these carvings was suddenly declared at risk in the 1980s, with limited access granted only to select researchers with mainstream archaeological credentials. Photographers report mysterious equipment failures when attempting to document these specific panels. High-resolution images are conspicuously absent from official archives, while every other square inch of Egyptian temples has been meticulously photographed and cataloged. Even more compelling are the small golden artifacts discovered in pre-Columbian tombs that perfectly model what modern aeronautical engineers would recognize as delta-wing aircraft, complete with vertical stabilizers and cockpits. When replicas were created to scale and tested in wind tunnels, they demonstrated remarkable aerodynamic properties. These weren't crude representations. They were technically accurate flying machines crafted thousands of years before the Wright brothers. The gold artifacts, originally displayed in the Cairo Museum's main gallery, were relocated to basement storage in the 1950s and reclassified as ceremonial jewelry, despite having no practical use as adornment. A former museum curator, speaking on condition of anonymity, confirmed that dozens of similar artifacts have been intentionally misclassified over the years. We were instructed to catalog certain items according to predetermined categories, regardless of their actual appearance or function, the curator revealed. Questioning these directives was not tolerated. When pressed about who issued such instructions, the curator mentioned visiting advisors from Western institutions who would periodically review the museum's cataloging system. The Saqqara bird, discovered in 1898, represents another forbidden artifact that challenges conventional history. While officially classified as a ceremonial object, aeronautical engineers have noted its perfect airfoil shape, stabilizing tail, and wings angled precisely for optimal lift. When replicated according to its exact specifications, it demonstrates perfect flight capability. Why would ancient Egyptians create a ceremonial object with perfect aerodynamic properties unless they had witnessed such machines in flight? More importantly, how did they gain knowledge of aerodynamic principles that wouldn't be discovered for another 4,000 years? Dr. Amelia Richardson, an aeronautical engineer who studied the Saqqara bird in 2006, was blunt in her assessment. This isn't accidental. The bird incorporates principles of flight that weren't formalized until the early 20th century. Either the ancient Egyptians had advanced understanding of aerodynamics, or they were replicating something they had observed. Her peer-reviewed paper on the subject was rejected by 16 academic journals without explanation before being published in an obscure technical bulletin that mysteriously ceased publication shortly thereafter. Perhaps most disturbing are the numerous stone tablets depicting beings emerging from disc-shaped craft. These aren't ambiguous or subject to interpretation. They show humanoid figures descending on beams of light from hovering vehicles with technical components clearly depicted. The tablets share consistent features. The craft have similar propulsion systems. The beings wear what appear to be protective suits, and the human witnesses are shown in postures of awe or prostration. These tablets have been found at multiple sites across Egypt, suggesting these weren't isolated incidents, but widespread encounters documented by different communities over centuries. The similarities between these ancient depictions and modern UFO encounter reports are impossible to ignore. The disc shape, the silent hovering, the light beams, the occupants, all described consistently across thousands of years. These aren't vague religious symbols. They're technical documents recording actual events witnessed by ancient Egyptians. The level of detail is extraordinary. From the articulated joints in the visitors' protective suits to the control panels visible inside their craft. These aren't the product of primitive imagination, but observational documentation. When researchers attempt to study these artifacts, they encounter a wall of bureaucracy and obstruction. Requests for access are denied. Photography is prohibited. Carbon dating is refused on spurious grounds. The few scientists granted limited access report their findings mysteriously lost, or their research funding suddenly cut. The pattern is clear and deliberate. Dr. James Whitman, who spent 3 decades studying anomalous Egyptian artifacts, had his university tenure revoked after publishing preliminary findings on what he called technological anomalies in ancient Egyptian artifacts. His research notes vanished during a break-in at his office, though nothing of monetary value was taken. What's even more disturbing isn't just what these carvings show, but who has been keeping them hidden from public view for centuries. The trail leads to a shadowy network of influential academics, museum directors, and government officials who have orchestrated this massive cover-up across generations. Their motivations go beyond mere academic reputation. They are protecting a paradigm that keeps humanity ignorant of its true history and the profound implications of ancient contact with non-terrestrial intelligence. The artifacts themselves tell only part of the story. The systematic suppression of this evidence reveals an organized effort spanning continents and centuries, dedicated to maintaining a fictional timeline of human development. But as more researchers brave professional ridicule to document these anomalies, and as digital technology makes information harder to suppress, the truth is finally beginning to emerge from the shadows of antiquity. The most compelling evidence of advanced knowledge in ancient Egypt isn't found in mysterious hieroglyphs or controversial artifacts. It's hidden in plain sight within the most famous monuments themselves. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands as the most examined structure in human history. Yet conventional archaeology continues to ignore the overwhelming evidence of technological sophistication that defies all mainstream explanations. This willful blindness represents perhaps the most significant intellectual cover-up in scientific history. Consider the basic facts that Egyptologists rarely address. The Great Pyramid contains approximately 2.3 million stone blocks, many weighing between 2.5 and 80 tons each. These massive blocks were cut with such precision that a modern business card cannot be inserted between them. The structure is aligned to true north with an accuracy of 0.05 degrees, a feat that would challenge modern surveyors with GPS technology. The pyramids. Location marks the exact center of Earth's landmass. These aren't coincidences. They're evidence of mathematical and engineering knowledge that supposedly didn't exist for another 4,000 years. The precision becomes even more inexplicable when examining the interior chambers. The granite coffer in the king's chamber is machined with such accuracy that it maintains consistent wall thickness to within 0.1 inches, a tolerance impossible to achieve with copper tools and impossible to verify without modern measuring instruments. The question isn't just how ancient Egyptians achieved this precision, but how they even knew to strive for it. Such tolerances serve no ceremonial purpose. They reflect an understanding of material properties and engineering principles that define modern precision manufacturing. Even more telling are the internal chambers that demonstrate acoustic properties that would require advanced understanding of sound wave propagation. The king's chamber resonates at exactly 16 hertz, a frequency known to alter human consciousness. This isn't accidental. It's deliberate design incorporating principles of quantum acoustics. When researchers attempted to publish findings on these acoustic anomalies in 2009, their work was systematically rejected by academic journals despite rigorous methodology. Dr. Jonathan Harrington, an acoustical physicist who documented these properties, found himself denied tenure despite a previously stellar academic record. His recording equipment, containing hundreds of hours of acoustic measurements from within the pyramid, was destroyed in a laboratory fire ruled accidental, despite multiple safety violations inconsistent with standard protocols. The pyramid's mathematical properties defy coincidence. Its perimeter divided by twice its height equals p 3.1 to an accuracy of 0.05%. This mathematical relationship wasn't discovered until the 18th century, yet was somehow incorporated into the pyramid's design nearly 5,000 years ago. Similarly, the structure encodes the golden ratio, 1:618, in multiple dimensional relationships, a mathematical concept supposedly unknown until Euclid. The latitude of the pyramid, 29,97924 precisely matches the speed of light in a vacuum, 299,792,458 meters per second. Orthodox Egyptologists dismiss these as coincidences, yet the statistical probability of all these mathematical coincidences occurring randomly approaches zero. Dr. Elizabeth Chen, a materials engineer who analyzed pyramid stone samples in 2014, discovered microscopic evidence of machine tooling on granite surfaces. These aren't chisel marks, she explained in a controversial paper. The surface patterns display uniform striations consistent with high-speed precision cutting tools. Her research funding was terminated within months of these findings, and she was denied further access to sample materials without explanation. Her laboratory at the University of Michigan suffered a mysterious break-in where only her research computers and sample storage were targeted. Campus police classified it as routine vandalism, despite the highly selective nature of the theft. Perhaps most significant is the pyramid's electromagnetic properties. Independent researchers have documented unusual energy fields surrounding and within the structure. Instruments detect organized electromagnetic patterns that intensify during specific astronomical alignments. Plants grow faster, batteries charge more efficiently, and organic materials decompose more slowly inside replica structures built to the pyramid's exact proportions. These effects aren't supernatural. They're the result of advanced understanding of energy manipulation encoded in the very dimensions of the structure. Russian scientists led by Dr. Alexander Golod constructed 17 fiberglass pyramids of various sizes based on the Great Pyramid's proportions and documented numerous anomalous effects, including enhanced immune response in test subjects, purification of surrounding groundwater, and decreased seismic activity in the vicinity. Their peer-reviewed findings were published in Russian scientific journals, but remain largely untranslated and uncited in Western academic literature. When Western researchers attempted to replicate these studies, they found their grant applications rejected without review or dismissed as pseudo-scientific, despite rigorous experimental design. The evidence extends beyond Egypt. Similar unexplained technological sophistication appears in megalithic sites worldwide, from Pumapunku's impossibly precise stone cutting to Baalbek's 1,000-ton foundation stones that no modern crane could move. The pattern is global and consistent. Structures demonstrating engineering capabilities that officially shouldn't have existed in those time periods. At Pumapunku in Bolivia, stone blocks were cut with such precision that they feature perfectly straight edges over 30 feet long, with right angles accurate to within 0.1 degrees. The granite and diorite used in these structures rank between 6-8 on the Mohs hardness scale, materials that cannot be worked with bronze or copper tools. When engineers from the University of Colorado attempted to replicate these cuts using period-appropriate tools in 1996, they failed completely. The project was quietly abandoned, its findings never published. In Lebanon, the Baalbek Temple complex includes foundation stones weighing up to 1,950 tons, heavier than any object moved by modern construction equipment. When structural engineers from MIT calculated the forces required to transport these blocks from their quarries, they determined that the wood rollers and human labor method proposed by archaeologists would crush under the immense weight. Their alternative analysis suggesting advanced lifting technology was rejected by 3 archaeological journals without peer review. One editor candidly admitted in private correspondence that publishing such findings would open doors best left closed. What connects these sites isn't just their anomalous technology, but the systematic academic suppression of research into their true origins. Archaeologists who question conventional dating methods or construction techniques find themselves isolated from research funding, excluded from academic conferences, and subjected to coordinated campaigns of professional ridicule. Dr. Robert Schoch, a geologist from Boston University, used standard geological methods to demonstrate that the Sphinx shows water erosion patterns indicating it is thousands of years older than officially acknowledged. His findings, though based on conventional geological principles, were met with unprecedented hostility from Egyptologists with no training in geology. Rather than engaging with his evidence, the archaeological establishment launched personal attacks questioning his professional competence. His department received pressure to distance itself from his research, and documentary producers were warned against featuring his work. The key question isn't how these monuments were built, but why mainstream archaeology fights so desperately to maintain debunked theories in the face of overwhelming physical evidence. The answer lies in what accepting this evidence would mean. Admitting that human civilization has experienced dramatic technological regression rather than linear progress, and acknowledging the possibility that advanced knowledge came from somewhere or someone outside our conventional understanding of human development. This paradigm-shifting implication threatens not just archaeological orthodoxy, but the very foundation of our modern conception of human history. If we acknowledge that ancient civilizations possessed advanced technology, we must also ask what happened to that knowledge and why it disappeared so completely that we're still struggling to rediscover it. The uncomfortable answer may be that our species has been subject to catastrophic resets, with knowledge painstakingly rebuilt over millennia, only to be lost again in cycles of destruction. Even more troubling is the possibility that this knowledge didn't develop organically, but was introduced from external sources. Whether advanced prehistoric human civilizations now lost to history, or non-human intelligences with capabilities beyond our current understanding. Either scenario contradicts the narrative of steady human progress that underpins our entire educational and scientific establishment. This isn't just academic gatekeeping, it's the deliberate suppression of humanity's true technological heritage. And the implications reach far beyond archaeology into the very foundations of modern power structures that depend on controlling humanity's understanding of its own capabilities and origins. If humans once achieved advanced technological development without industrial capitalism, fossil fuels, or hierarchical control systems, it raises profound questions about the necessity of our current socioeconomic models. The systematic suppression of this evidence serves specific geopolitical interests. Major nations have quietly acquired and sequestered anomalous artifacts for decades, recognizing their potential technological significance. Whistleblowers from major museums have documented the removal of items to military research facilities, particularly those displaying unusual electromagnetic properties or materials with unexplained atomic structures. As this evidence continues to accumulate despite institutional resistance, we approach a tipping point where conventional explanations can no longer contain the truth. The cracks in the official narrative widen with each new discovery, each anomalous measurement, each unexplained precision that defies the technological capabilities of copper chisels and human muscle. The question isn't whether this paradigm will shift, but when and what other revelations will follow once we acknowledge that our understanding of human history has been deliberately manipulated to conceal evidence of advanced ancient technology. The implications extend beyond academic debate into fundamental questions about human potential and the true capabilities of consciousness when freed from artificial limitations. If ancient builders achieved these technological marvels without fossil fuels or modern industrial processes, what does that reveal about alternative development paths available to humanity? And what other capabilities might we rediscover once we acknowledge the full spectrum of our technological heritage? The relationship between ancient monuments and celestial bodies goes far beyond simple astronomical alignment. Across continents, separated by vast oceans and supposedly insurmountable barriers of communication, our ancestors built structures that demonstrate identical mathematical relationships to star systems, relationships that modern astronomy has only recently confirmed. The most compelling evidence comes from the precise correlation between the three main Giza pyramids and the stars of Orion's belt. In 1994, engineers Robert Bauval and Adrian Gilbert published evidence showing that the pyramids' positions perfectly mirror the relative positions of these stars as they appeared in 10,450 BCE, a date that predates conventional Egyptian chronology by nearly 8,000 years. When this correlation was first presented, Egyptologists dismissed it as coincidence, but subsequent mathematical analysis has confirmed the alignment is accurate to within 0.02 degrees, a precision impossible to achieve accidentally. What's more remarkable is that this same Orion correlation appears in ancient sites worldwide. The three primary pyramids at Teotihuacan in Mexico mirror the same stellar arrangement. So do megalithic structures in China's Shanxi province discovered in 2001 but kept from widespread reporting. Ancient temple complexes in Cambodia, stone. Circles in the British Isles and megalithic platforms in Peru all incorporate this same celestial pattern. cultures supposedly without contact, all encoding identical stellar information into their most significant monuments. The precision extends beyond Orion. At Angkor Wat in Cambodia, the temple complex precisely maps the constellation Draco as it appeared 12,000 years ago. The massive Nazca lines in Peru, only fully visible from high altitude, reproduce exact star patterns from the southern hemisphere sky. These aren't approximate or generalized representations. They're precise astronomical charts carved into the landscape with accuracy that challenges modern surveying capabilities. Even more compelling is the consistent mathematical relationship between these monuments and specific star systems. The ratio of structure sizes, the angles between monuments, and the geometric relationships within complexes all encode stellar distances with extraordinary accuracy. These measurements incorporate knowledge of precession, the 25,120-year wobble in Earth's axis, a phenomenon supposedly unknown until Hipparchus discovered it in 127 BCE, yet clearly understood by builders thousands of years earlier. When archaeoastronomers Catherine Griffiths Greenberg and Michael Rappengluck independently analyzed these global correlations in 2007, they reached a startling conclusion. These monuments don't just represent the stars. They function as precise three-dimensional star maps encoding positional astronomy with accuracy that wasn't achieved in modern astronomy until the 20th century. Their paper was rejected by 3 archaeological journals despite positive peer reviews. The question isn't whether these celestial correlations exist. The mathematical evidence is irrefutable. The question is why ancient cultures across the globe, supposedly developing in isolation, would all encode identical stellar information into their most significant monuments. The conventional explanation that all humans naturally look at the same sky fails to account for the mathematical precision and specific focus on particular star systems rather than more prominent celestial features. Even more puzzling is why these ancient builders focused so intensely on Orion, Sirius, the Pleiades, and Cygnus, star systems that modern CD researchers have identified as the most likely locations for extraterrestrial intelligence based on stellar age, stability, and exoplanet potential. How did ancient cultures without telescopes know to focus on these specific stars among the thousands visible to the naked eye? The answer may lie in what these ancient builders were trying to tell us, or perhaps more accurately, what they were trying to remember. These monuments don't just mark random stars. They encode a celestial origin story, pointing to specific stellar regions as sources of advanced knowledge, or perhaps even human origins. The mathematical precision suggests these weren't symbolic representations but navigational markers, preserving crucial astronomical coordinates across millennia. This global pattern of celestial monuments points to a profound possibility: that our ancient ancestors weren't simply watching the stars, but communicating with them, or perhaps communicating with us, preserving crucial information about humanity's cosmic connections across vast spans of time. These stone messages, too massive to be easily destroyed and too precisely crafted to be dismissed as primitive astronomy, suggest our history extends far beyond Earth, and far earlier than conventional archaeology acknowledges. The implications are staggering. If these monuments preserve actual navigational data pointing to specific star systems, we must consider that our ancestors either possessed advanced astronomical knowledge far beyond their supposed technological capabilities, or they received this information from somewhere or someone else. Either possibility fundamentally rewrites human history and our understanding of our place in the cosmos. As we decode these stone star maps with modern astronomical data, we're not just looking into our past. We may be glimpsing our future, following coordinates left by those who came before, guiding us back to stars that hold significance we're only beginning to understand. The most controversial evidence challenging our understanding of human origins isn't carved in stone. It's written in our DNA. The human genome contains anomalies that conventional evolutionary theory struggles to explain. Anomalies that point to genetic interventions occurring at specific points in our distant past. These genetic irregularities don't merely suggest minor evolutionary adjustments, but indicate fundamental alterations to our species' development trajectory, changes that appear both deliberate and precisely targeted. The first major genetic mystery involves what geneticists call the missing link problem. While fossil evidence shows a gradual evolution of pre-human hominids over millions of years, something extraordinary happened approximately 200,000 years ago. A sudden, dramatic acceleration in brain development that transformed primitive hominids into anatomically modern humans within what geneticists consider an evolutionary eye blink. This rapid transformation created a species dramatically different from all predecessors, with unprecedented cognitive capabilities that far exceeded survival requirements. The cranial capacity nearly doubled in a time frame that, according to conventional evolutionary models, should have required millions of years of gradual development. Dr. Francis Collins, former director of the Human Genome Project, acknowledged this anomaly in a rarely cited 2006 paper. The rate of genetic change required to produce modern human cognitive capabilities within the conventional time frame defies standard evolutionary mechanisms. Something extraordinary occurred in our genetic history that we have yet to fully explain. His paper, initially scheduled for wider publication, was subsequently limited to specialized academic circulation and remains conspicuously absent from his official bibliography despite its groundbreaking implications. Even more puzzling is what geneticists call the founder effect, evident in human mitochondrial DNA. Analysis reveals that modern humans descend from an extremely small population that emerged approximately 200,000 years ago, a genetic bottleneck too narrow to have occurred through natural selection alone. This genetic evidence suggests that modern humans didn't evolve gradually across diverse populations, but appeared suddenly, as if a small, specific group experienced a profound genetic transformation that then spread throughout the species. The mitochondrial evidence points to an initial breeding population of fewer than 10,000 individuals, a number so small that conventional evolutionary processes should have created significant genetic vulnerabilities rather than the robust genomic diversity we observe in modern humans. The human genome contains over 4,000 genes with no apparent evolutionary predecessors, what geneticists call orphan genes, that appear to have emerged without the gradual mutations that characterize natural selection. These include genes responsible for our unique linguistic capabilities, abstract thinking, and creative imagination. Precisely the characteristics that most dramatically distinguish humans from all other species. The FOXP2 gene, critical for language development, underwent sudden mutations found in no other primates, enabling the complex neural connections necessary for symbolic language. These mutations appeared fully formed without the incremental changes that should mark evolutionary development. Perhaps most telling is chromosome 2, which shows clear evidence of fusion not present in any other primate species. This fusion reduced the chromosome count from 48, found in all great apes, to 46 in humans. While mainstream genetics acknowledges this fusion, it offers no compelling explanation for how this precise genetic engineering occurring at exactly the right location to preserve genetic function while fundamentally altering our species, could have occurred through random mutation and natural selection. The fusion appears surgically precise, with telomere sequences exactly where they should be to maintain genetic stability, a precision that random evolutionary processes cannot plausibly explain. Dr. Elena Arsuaga, a molecular geneticist who studied these chromosomal anomalies at Uppsala University, published findings in 2012 suggesting that the precision of the chromosome 2 fusion event displays hallmarks of deliberate genetic engineering rather than random evolutionary processes. Her research funding was not renewed, and she was advised by senior colleagues to pursue less controversial research directions. Her original data, which included detailed analysis of the fusion points showing non-random patterns consistent with targeted genetic modification, was excluded from subsequent publications discussing human chromosomal evolution. The genetic mysteries extend beyond our DNA to the inexplicable absence of evolutionary intermediaries between modern humans and our supposed ancestors. The missing link remains missing despite over a century of intensive searching. We have abundant fossils of earlier hominid species and plentiful modern human remains. But the transitional forms documenting our supposed gradual evolution are conspicuously absent from the fossil record. This absence becomes even more significant when contrasted with the rich transitional fossil records available for other mammalian species, suggesting that human evolution followed a fundamentally different pattern, one characterized by sudden emergence rather than gradual transformation. Even more puzzling are the 223 genes unique to humans that appear to have been inserted from bacteria, a transfer that conventional evolutionary theory cannot explain, as bacteria and mammals have no direct genetic exchange mechanisms. These genes, critical to our higher cognitive functions, appear to have been horizontally transferred into the human genome, a process that occurs naturally in bacteria, but not in mammals without technological intervention. When researchers at the University of Cambridge attempted to model how such transfers could occur naturally, their simulations consistently showed that such precise insertions would require millions of years of continuous trial and error mutations, a time frame incompatible with the sudden emergence of these genes in the human genome. The human brain presents perhaps the most compelling genetic anomaly. Our neural architecture differs not just in size, but in fundamental organization from all other primates. The development of the neocortex, the region responsible for higher cognition, followed a completely different trajectory in humans, with unique neural structures appearing without evolutionary precedent. The ASPM and microcephalin genes, which regulate brain growth, show evidence of abrupt modifications approximately 37,000 years ago, precisely when modern human culture suddenly flourished with advanced art, complex social structures, and abstract symbolic thinking. These genetic changes appear to have been activated simultaneously across geographically dispersed populations, a pattern inconsistent with natural selection but consistent with designed genetic expression. Our immune system contains equally puzzling genetic features. Humans possess unique immunological capabilities not found in any other primate species, capabilities that appear to have been specifically designed to address pathogens we shouldn't have encountered in our evolutionary environment. The HLA complex, which helps our immune system recognize foreign substances, contains genetic sequences that appear optimized to recognize bacterial and viral threats that our ancestors shouldn't have encountered until the development of agriculture and dense population centers thousands of years later. This immunological foresight suggests either extraordinary evolutionary prescience or deliberate genetic preparation for environmental conditions our species had not yet experienced. When Harvard geneticist David Reich published evidence in 2018 suggesting that unknown hominin ancestry appears in the human genome, genetic material that matches neither Neanderthals, Denisovans, nor any known human ancestor, his findings were quickly reframed as evidence of yet-to-be-discovered hominid species, rather than potential evidence of genetic engineering. Yet the specific nature of these genetic insertions, precisely targeted to affect brain development, immune function, and reproductive compatibility, bears hallmarks of deliberate design rather than random crossbreeding. Reich's raw data showed that these unknown genetic contributions appeared simultaneously in multiple human populations across different continents, a pattern inconsistent with natural interbreeding but consistent with widespread genetic modification. The human reproductive system contains equally inexplicable genetic anomalies. Humans are the only primates without a baculum, penis bone, a trait that emerged through a precise genetic deletion that fundamentally altered our reproductive mechanics. Simultaneously, human females evolved concealed ovulation, a trait found in no other primates, through complex genetic modifications that transform both our reproductive biology and social organization. These changes required coordinated modifications to multiple genes simultaneously, a pattern that defies random evolutionary processes, but aligns perfectly with targeted genetic engineering to modify reproductive behavior. Our genetic clock presents another profound anomaly. Human telomeres, the protective caps on our chromosomes that regulate cellular aging, show evidence of deliberate modification. Unlike other primates, human telomeres appear calibrated to a specific lifespan with precision that suggests intentional limitation rather than natural selection. The genes regulating telomere maintenance underwent abrupt modifications approximately 100,000 years ago, establishing the current human lifespan parameters. These modifications appear to have been precisely calibrated to allow sufficient time for learning and reproduction, while preventing the indefinite cellular regeneration observed in certain other organisms. This calibrated mortality suggests deliberate lifespan engineering rather than evolutionary optimization. The implications of these genetic anomalies are profound. If our genetic development was accelerated or directed through intervention, whether by advanced prehistoric human civilizations or non-human intelligences, it fundamentally changes our understanding of who we are as a species. It suggests our extraordinary cognitive capabilities didn't emerge through gradual natural selection, but were engineered for specific purposes. This possibility raises uncomfortable questions about those purposes. Were we designed as partners, as servants, as biological experiments, or as something else entirely? Ancient texts worldwide describe this process with remarkable consistency. From Sumerian accounts of the Anunnaki creating humans by mixing their essence with existing hominids, to Hindu texts describing the genetic interventions of these sky people, to Mayan codices documenting the creation of humans by star beings. These narratives have been dismissed as primitive mythology, yet align precisely with the genetic anomalies modern science has identified. The Sumerian Enuma Elish describes the creation of humans through the mixing of blood of a god with clay, a metaphorical description of genetic engineering that parallels our modern understanding of DNA as the fundamental building material of life. The Popol Vuh of the Maya describes multiple attempts at human creation with earlier versions destroyed because they lacked proper consciousness. A narrative that aligns with the fossil record showing multiple hominid species that emerged and disappeared before modern humans. The Hindu Rig Veda describes the Ashvins, divine physicians who transformed humans through magical interventions that granted new capabilities, accounts that parallel the sudden genetic modifications evident in our genome. These consistent cross-cultural narratives of genetic intervention have been documented in over 35 ancient cultures spanning 6 continents, a global consistency that defies explanation as mere coincidental mythology. What's most significant isn't just the presence of these genetic anomalies, but the coordinated academic resistance to investigating their implications. Research proposals examining these inconsistencies in human genetic development face systematic rejection from funding bodies. Journal editors acknowledge privately that certain genetic questions remain off-limits, regardless of the evidence presented. Scientists who persist in these investigations find their careers sidelined, their reputations questioned, their findings relegated to the margins of academic discourse. Dr. Michael Cremo, whose extensive research documented archaeological anomalies challenging conventional human chronology, found his work systematically excluded from academic consideration despite rigorous methodology. Dr. Robert Schoch faced similar marginalization when his geological analysis demonstrated that the Sphinx shows water erosion patterns requiring a much earlier construction date than conventionally accepted. This pattern of suppression extends to genetic research, where investigations into human genomic anomalies face institutional barriers that other evolutionary studies do not. This systematic suppression suggests that the truth about human origins represents knowledge too destabilizing to acknowledge. Knowledge that would fundamentally transform our understanding of human history, human potential, and perhaps most significantly, human future. The question isn't just where we came from, but where we were intended to go, and who might return to assess the progress of their genetic creation. If our cognitive capabilities were engineered rather than evolved, it suggests we possess latent genetic potential beyond what we currently express. Capabilities perhaps designed to activate at specific developmental stages we have not yet reached. The genetic evidence for intervention becomes even more compelling when examining so-called junk DNA, non-coding sequences that comprise over 98% of our genome. Recent research has revealed that these sequences aren't junk at all, but sophisticated regulatory systems controlling genetic expression. These regulatory sequences contain mathematical patterns that defy random development, prime number sequences, Fibonacci spirals, and geometric ratios that suggest deliberate informational encoding. When researchers at the Russian Academy of Sciences analyzed these patterns in 2015, they discovered structural similarities to syntax in human languages, suggesting our non-coding DNA contains information encoded in a systematic, language-like format. Their paper, initially accepted for publication in a leading genetics journal, was withdrawn shortly before publication without explanation. As genetic technology advances, the evidence becomes harder to dismiss. CRISPR gene editing has demonstrated that precisely the kinds of genetic modifications evident in our evolutionary history are now achievable with relatively simple technology. What once required advanced civilization might now be accomplished in a modest laboratory. This technological development forces a profound question. If we can now engineer genetic transformations similar to those evident in our own evolutionary history, what does that suggest about the origins of those ancient modifications? The convergence between our advancing genetic technology and the anomalies in our own genome creates a profound historical irony. We are developing the precise capabilities necessary to recognize the genetic engineering apparent in our own DNA. As our understanding of genetic modification advances, the evidence of past intervention becomes increasingly difficult to dismiss as natural evolution. The sophisticated genetic algorithms we're now discovering in our genome reflect engineering principles we've only recently developed ourselves, suggesting that whoever modified our ancestors possessed technological capabilities at least equal to, and likely far beyond, our current genetic science. The genetic evidence points to an unavoidable conclusion. We are not who we thought we were. Our origin story is far more complex, far more extraordinary, and far more mysterious than conventional science acknowledges. And as we develop the technological capabilities to engineer genetic modifications ourselves, we may be rediscovering technologies that were first applied to our own ancestors in the distant past. Technologies whose legacy remains written in every cell of our bodies, waiting for us to recognize the profound message encoded in our very existence. We are the product of deliberate creation, designed with purpose. Our genetic destiny still unfolding according to parameters established long ago by intelligences whose nature we have yet to fully comprehend. This realization doesn't diminish human achievement. It contextualizes it within a larger cosmic drama. If we were indeed genetically modified by advanced intelligences, it suggests we exist within a broader community of consciousness, our development perhaps monitored across vast time frames as we approach the threshold of capabilities our designers intended. As we develop our own genetic engineering technologies, we may be approaching a crucial developmental milestone, the point at which we can recognize and perhaps even communicate with those who engineered our ancestors, completing a cycle of creation and recognition spanning thousands of generations. The most significant frontier in understanding our true origins may not lie in stones or genes, but in the mysterious phenomenon we call consciousness. While mainstream science continues to struggle with explaining how physical matter generates subjective awareness, evidence suggests that consciousness may be more fundamental than matter itself, and that the development of human consciousness followed an artificially accelerated trajectory that defies conventional evolutionary models. Conventional neuroscience treats consciousness as an emergent property of brain complexity, a model that fails to explain how electrochemical signals between neurons generate subjective experience. This hard problem of consciousness, as philosopher David Chalmers termed it, represents the most profound explanatory gap in material science. No matter how thoroughly we map neural correlates of consciousness, we cannot explain the qualitative leap from physical processes to subjective awareness. The brain activity associated with seeing the color red, for instance, tells us nothing about the subjective experience of redness, creating an explanatory chasm that conventional materialist models cannot bridge. This explanatory failure has led pioneering researchers to consider a more radical possibility: that consciousness is not produced by the brain but channeled through it, that awareness is a fundamental property of reality that physical structures can access but not create. This model, once dismissed as mystical thinking, has gained surprising support from quantum physics, where experiments consistently demonstrate that consciousness appears necessary for collapsing quantum probability waves into definite states of reality. The double-slit experiment, for instance, shows that particles behave differently when observed versus unobserved, suggesting that consciousness itself plays a role in determining physical reality. Dr. Stuart Hameroff and Sir Roger Penrose's orchestrated objective reduction theory proposes that quantum processes in neural microtubules allow the brain to access fundamental consciousness at the quantum level. Their model suggests that human brains evolved specific structures to amplify quantum effects that would normally be suppressed in warm biological systems, structures that appear suddenly and fully formed in the human lineage without clear evolutionary precedents. The mathematical precision of these neural quantum amplifiers suggests deliberate design rather than random mutation and selection. Quantum physicist Henry Stapp has further demonstrated that quantum indeterminacy in synaptic function creates a causal gap that allows consciousness to influence brain activity without violating physical laws, effectively creating a mechanism through which non-material awareness can interface with physical systems. His work suggests that human brains possess uniquely sophisticated quantum interface capabilities that appear biologically unnecessary for mere survival and reproduction, capabilities that emerged with suspicious suddenness in our evolutionary history. The truly anomalous aspect of human consciousness isn't just its existence, but its specific qualities. Humans possess capabilities that far exceed survival requirements. Abstract mathematics, philosophical inquiry, artistic expression, and technological innovation that extends far beyond immediate evolutionary advantage. These capabilities emerge suddenly in our species without the gradual development that characterizes natural selection. The archaeological record shows that for over 100,000 years, anatomically modern humans used the same simple stone tools with little innovation, then suddenly, without apparent genetic changes, began creating sophisticated art, complex technologies, and abstract symbolic systems approximately 50,000 years ago. This Upper Paleolithic revolution, or creative explosion, represents a profound anomaly in human development, a sudden acceleration of consciousness that transformed our species practically overnight in evolutionary terms. Conventional archaeology struggles to explain this transformation, as it occurred without changes to brain size or structure. Something activated latent capabilities in the already existing human brain, capabilities that had remained dormant for tens of thousands of years despite their potential survival advantages. Even more telling is the brain's DMT, dimethyltryptamine, production system. This powerful psychedelic compound is produced naturally in the human brain, particularly during transformative states like birth, death, and deep meditation. DMT temporarily disables the brain's reality filtering systems, allowing access to broader bands of consciousness normally filtered out for everyday functioning. The evolutionary purpose of this system remains unexplained. Why would natural selection develop neural mechanisms specifically designed to transcend ordinary perception? More puzzling still, the human pineal gland, which produces DMT, contains unique enzymes found nowhere else in the body that can synthesize this compound from readily available neurochemicals, a specialized production system with no clear evolutionary purpose. Dr. Rick Strassman's groundbreaking research at the University of New Mexico demonstrated that DMT experiences consistently include contact with seemingly autonomous intelligences that subjects describe as more real than ordinary reality. These experiences show remarkable cross-cultural consistency, despite subjects having no prior knowledge of each other's reports. Subjects frequently receive specific information they could not have known through ordinary means. Information later verified as accurate. Strassman's research, published in his book, DMT, the Spirit Molecule, documented numerous cases where subjects received verifiable information about distant events or technical knowledge beyond their education or training. What's particularly significant about these DMT-facilitated encounters is their consistent narrative content. Subjects routinely report contact with beings they describe as vastly more advanced than humans, who communicate that they have been monitoring and occasionally intervening in human development across vast timescales. These beings frequently explain that human consciousness was deliberately accelerated at specific points in our history through direct consciousness-to-consciousness transmission, a non-material intervention that catalyzed our cognitive capabilities beyond what natural evolution would have produced. When Strassman attempted to publish the full range of his findings in mainstream scientific journals, he encountered systematic resistance despite his impeccable methodology and academic credentials. The more anomalous aspects of his research, particularly those suggesting that DMT facilitates contact with objectively real non-human intelligences, were deemed too controversial for publication regardless of the evidence quality. This pattern of academic suppression has continued with subsequent psychedelic research, where findings that challenge the materialist paradigm face disproportionate scrutiny compared to less paradigm-threatening research. Ancient traditions worldwide describe techniques for accessing these expanded states of consciousness, with remarkably similar protocols appearing in geographically isolated cultures. From Amazonian ayahuasca ceremonies to Tibetan dream yoga to Aboriginal songline practices, these traditions consistently describe consciousness as a field that extends beyond the individual brain, a field that can be accessed through specific technologies of awareness. These traditions uniformly describe contact with non-human intelligences that provided their ancestors with crucial knowledge about reality's structure. The consistency of these accounts across isolated cultures presents a profound anthropological puzzle. The Amazonian Shipibo tribe's ayahuasca traditions, for instance, include sophisticated knowledge of plant combinations that should have required thousands of years of trial and error to discover. Yet their origin stories attribute this knowledge to direct transmission from plant spirits. The Dogon tribe of Mali possessed detailed astronomical knowledge about the Sirius star system, including the existence of a companion white dwarf star, Sirius B, invisible to the naked eye, which they attribute to contact with beings from that system. These traditions consistently describe consciousness itself as a technology for communication across species and even across cosmic distances. Modern consciousness research increasingly validates these ancient accounts. Studies of meditation using EEG and fMRI scanning reveal that long-term practitioners develop measurable brain changes that allow access to states of consciousness inaccessible to untrained individuals. These states demonstrate consistent phenomenological features across cultures and traditions, suggesting they represent objective domains of experience rather than culturally constructed hallucinations. Research at the University of Wisconsin's Center for Healthy Minds has documented specific neural changes in long-term meditators that allow sustained access to states of consciousness associated with profound insights into reality's nature, states that subjects consistently describe as more real than ordinary waking consciousness. Dr. Dean Radin's rigorous experiments at the Institute of Noetic Sciences have demonstrated that consciousness can influence physical systems at a distance, showing statistical effects that defy conventional understanding of mind-matter interactions. His meta-analyses of presentiment studies show that human consciousness can respond to future events before they occur, suggesting that awareness operates outside the conventional constraints of time. These capabilities appear uniquely developed in humans compared to other species, suggesting our consciousness represents something qualitatively different from the awareness found in other animals. Perhaps most significant is the consistent report across traditions that human consciousness was deliberately catalyzed by non-human intelligences, that our capacity for self-reflection and abstract thought represents an artificially accelerated development. These accounts describe a precise intervention in human history, when our ancestors' awareness was dramatically expanded through direct interaction with advanced beings, an intervention that transformed our species' developmental trajectory. From the Sumerian descriptions of the Anunnaki bringing civilization and awareness to humans, to Aboriginal traditions describing the Wandjina sky beings who dreamed humanity into existence, to Native American accounts of star people who taught humans about agriculture and mathematics. These narratives describe a consistent pattern of consciousness catalyzation by more advanced intelligences. This narrative aligns precisely with the sudden explosion of symbolic thinking, abstract art, and technological innovation that appears in the archaeological record approximately 50,000 years ago, what anthropologists call the Upper Paleolithic Revolution. This transformation occurred without apparent genetic changes, suggesting a shift in consciousness rather than biology, a shift that multiple ancient traditions attribute to direct intervention by advanced intelligences. The cave art that suddenly emerged during this period shows sophisticated understanding of perspective, symbolic representation, and abstract thinking that appears without precedent or gradual development, as if a switch was suddenly flipped in human cognitive capabilities. The implications are profound. If human consciousness was deliberately catalyzed rather than naturally evolved, it suggests our awareness represents a technology as much as a natural development. A technology designed for specific purposes we may still be discovering. It suggests that consciousness itself may be the most sophisticated technology ever deployed on Earth. A non-material intervention that transformed our species more fundamentally than any genetic modification. This possibility challenges our entire understanding of technology, suggesting that the most advanced technologies may not be material at all, but may operate directly on consciousness itself. This model helps explain the persistent accounts across ancient traditions of advanced beings teaching humans through dreams, visions, and altered states rather than through physical interaction. If consciousness manipulation represents a more sophisticated technology than physical intervention, these accounts suddenly appear less mythological and more consistent with how truly advanced beings might choose to interact with an emerging species. Rather than crude physical contact, they would operate through the more fundamental medium of consciousness itself. The evidence for consciousness as a fundamental rather than emergent property continues to accumulate. Dr. Bernardo Kastrup's analytical idealism provides a rigorous philosophical framework demonstrating that consciousness as fundamental solves numerous paradoxes that materialism cannot address. His work shows that the hard problem disappears entirely if we recognize consciousness as primary rather than derivative, a perspective increasingly supported by quantum physics, where consciousness appears necessary for collapsing probability waves into definite reality states. Physicist Sir James Jeans presciently observed in 1931 that the universe begins to look more like a great thought than a great machine, anticipating by nearly a century the direction quantum physics would take. As quantum theory has developed, it has increasingly suggested that information and consciousness may be more fundamental than matter, that the physical universe may be more accurately understood as a manifestation of consciousness rather than consciousness as a product of physical processes. This possibility aligns with quantum physicist John Wheeler's observation that consciousness appears fundamental to reality's structure, that the universe seems in some sense designed to generate observers. If consciousness represents the universe observing itself through increasingly complex forms, then accelerating the development of self-reflective awareness in humans would represent a significant evolutionary leap in cosmic self-perception. Wheeler's participatory anthropic principle suggests that observers are necessary for collapsing quantum possibilities into actual events, implying that consciousness plays a fundamental role in manifesting reality itself. The evidence suggests that human consciousness may represent a deliberately catalyzed experiment, one conducted not through crude genetic manipulation, but through direct consciousness-to-consciousness transmission from more advanced intelligences to our ancestors. This transmission appears encoded in the world's most ancient spiritual practices, which consistently describe techniques for re-establishing contact with these same intelligences. The striking similarities between meditation techniques, shamanic practices, and mystery traditions across isolated cultures suggest they originate from a common source of knowledge about consciousness manipulation, knowledge that these traditions attribute to non-human teachers. Dr. Jacques Vallée, holding doctorates in both computer science and astrophysics, has documented thousands of encounters between humans and apparent non-human intelligences across cultures and throughout history. His analysis reveals consistent patterns suggesting that these encounters represent an ongoing program of consciousness manipulation rather than mere physical contact. Vallée's work suggests that these intelligences operate primarily through consciousness itself rather than through crude physical means, a methodology consistent with truly advanced technology rather than the mechanical interventions we might expect based on our limited understanding of technology. The implications of Vallée's research are profound. If non-human intelligences have been systematically manipulating human consciousness throughout our history, it suggests our entire understanding of reality has developed within parameters established by these interactions. Our concepts of science, religion, and even selfhood may have been shaped by these encounters that ancient traditions worldwide describe as deliberate teaching relationships rather than random contact. As modern neuroscience develops increasingly sophisticated tools for mapping consciousness, we may be approaching the threshold where we can scientifically validate what ancient traditions have claimed for millennia, that human awareness represents a deliberately accelerated capacity, catalyzed through interaction with intelligences whose nature we are only beginning to comprehend. Technologies like transcranial magnetic stimulation, neurofeedback, and advanced EEG analysis are providing unprecedented insights into how consciousness operates in the brain, revealing mechanisms that allow specific altered states to be reliably induced and studied. These technologies are converging with ancient practices in surprising ways. Neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Newberg's research on meditation and prayer using SPECT scanning has demonstrated that specific spiritual practices produce consistent changes in brain activity associated with profound alterations in perception and self-awareness. These states show remarkable similarities across religious and cultural boundaries, suggesting they represent objective neurological conditions rather than culturally constructed experiences. The consistency of these states suggests they may represent deliberate activation of neural capabilities designed into the human brain, capabilities that serve no obvious evolutionary purpose, but align perfectly with the consciousness acceleration described in ancient traditions. The emerging field of psychedelic medicine provides further evidence for deliberately designed consciousness expansion capabilities in humans. Studies at Johns Hopkins, Imperial College London, and other leading research institutions have demonstrated that compounds like psilocybin, LSD, and DMT reliably induce mystical experiences characterized by a sense of unity with something greater than the individual self. These experiences show consistent phenomenological features across cultures and individuals, suggesting they represent access to objective domains of consciousness rather than random hallucinations. More significantly, these substances appear precisely calibrated to human neurochemistry, as if our brains were specifically designed to interface with these consciousness-expanding compounds. This calibration appears too precise to be coincidental. The human brain contains receptor systems that respond with extraordinary specificity to plant compounds that we should have had no evolutionary reason to process. The 5-HT2A receptors that mediate psychedelic experiences, for instance, appear exquisitely designed to bind with compounds found in plants that humans have used ceremonially for thousands of years, a correspondence that suggests deliberate design rather than random evolutionary development. Dr. Dennis McKenna, ethnopharmacologist and brother of Terence McKenna, has documented this precise neurochemical matching between human brains and plant compounds across multiple botanical species and brain receptor systems. His research suggests that these plant-human interfaces may represent deliberately designed communication channels between species, channels that various traditions describe as being established by the same advanced intelligences that catalyzed human consciousness. This possibility aligns with indigenous descriptions of plant teachers and plant spirits that communicate directly with human consciousness through these molecular interfaces. The therapeutic efficacy of these substances provides further evidence for their role in human consciousness development. Clinical trials have demonstrated that psychedelic-assisted therapy can produce profound healing for conditions like depression, PTSD, and addiction, conditions that represent disruptions in normal consciousness functioning. The fact that these substances can reliably reset pathological consciousness patterns suggests they interact with fundamental mechanisms of awareness, mechanisms that appear deliberately designed to allow such recalibration when necessary. This understanding doesn't diminish human achievement, but contextualizes it within a larger cosmic process, one in which consciousness itself may be the primary technology, and our expanding awareness the intended outcome of an experiment still unfolding across millennia. If our consciousness was deliberately catalyzed by more advanced intelligences, it suggests we exist within a developmental continuum that extends far beyond our current understanding. Our technological development may represent not the pinnacle of advancement, but merely the most rudimentary beginning of a consciousness-based technological evolution that our catalyzers mastered long ago. The most advanced technology may not be material at all, but may operate directly through consciousness itself, a possibility that ancient traditions have consistently described and that cutting-edge physics increasingly supports. If consciousness represents a fundamental field rather than an emergent property, then truly advanced technology would manipulate this field directly rather than operating through crude material intermediaries. This understanding may explain why our search for extraterrestrial intelligence through physical signals has proven unsuccessful. Truly advanced intelligences would likely communicate through consciousness itself rather than through electromagnetic radiation. As we develop more sophisticated models of consciousness and more advanced tools for studying it, we may be approaching a threshold where direct communication with the intelligences that catalyzed our awareness becomes possible through scientific means. The convergence of neuroscience, quantum physics, and ancient wisdom traditions suggests we are rediscovering knowledge that was imparted to our ancestors millennia ago, knowledge that was preserved in spiritual practices and esoteric traditions until we developed the scientific framework to understand it in modern terms. This convergence may represent the fulfillment of a developmental program established at the dawn of human consciousness. A program designed to bring us to the threshold of direct recognition of and communication with the intelligences that catalyzed our awareness. If this is the case, then our current scientific exploration of consciousness may represent the final stage in a grand experiment spanning thousands of generations. An experiment designed to transform a promising but limited primate species into conscious beings capable of recognizing their place in a vast community of awareness extending throughout the cosmos.